Everyone, just to inform you that we will be starting shortly. We're just waiting for a few persons to enter the room, of course, due to some traffic on the road, but we will be beginning in a short moment. Okay? Invite those that are seated towards the back to fill the available space in the front. This allows us to maintain a comfortable floor, and of course, the cameraman would highly appreciate it. So if you can kindly fill the available seats, it would be highly appreciated. And once you have done that, I'm going to ask everyone to please stand so we can begin with one stanza of the Sint Maarten song.
Where over the world, say where, you find an island there, so lovely small, with nations free, with people French and Dutch, though talking English much, as the St. Maarten in the sea. Oh, sweet St. Martin's land, so bright by beach and strand, with sailors on the sea and harbors free, where the chains of mountains gleam, variously in sunlight sheen. Oh, I love that paradise, nature's beauty fairly nice. Oh, I love that paradise, nature's beauty fairly nice.
Thank you. You may now have your seats. Pleasant evening once again, everyone, and welcome. My name is Amanda Vital, Bedminister, and I have the distinct pleasure to be guiding us through this evening's program. Before we begin, I would like to recognize and welcome in our midst Member of Parliament, Mr. Darrell York, Minister of Romy, Patrice Gums, the Dutch representative of St. Maarten, Mr. Boonsma, the Secretary General of Romy, Mr. Kenson Plasmont, and any other Secretary Generals that are present, the Director of the NRPB, Mr. Claret Connor, Director of the Steering Committee, Mr. Ronald Hallman, our partners, consultants, and all stakeholders here with us, we thank each one of you for being here. A quick note before we start, and yes, you may give everyone a round of applause, because I heard it coming. A quick note before we start, tonight's session is being live streamed, and the photos will be taken also throughout the evening. So have your best smile out tonight. Tonight we initiate a critical dialogue to share information, clarify the path forward, and integrate community insights into our planning process. This engagement reaffirms that successful strategic planning is not merely technical. It is a collaborative community endeavor. It thrives when the voices, insights, and concerns of neighborhood residents are directly incorporated. That is why you are here. That is why I am here. That is why we are here. We are here to walk you through what is being planned. However, our primary function is to listen and learn. Your first-hand experiences are instrumental in shaping this project's final design and ensuring the work delivers maximum benefit, accurately addressing the needs of families and communities across the island. We extend our sincere thanks for your commitment to this project. Your presence and contributions are highly valued. I will share with you how this evening will flow. You do see an agenda on the back, to the back of me. What we will hear this evening is welcome words from the director of the NRPB, followed by remarks from the Minister of Rami. We will then move into a presentation by SWMP project manager, Mr. Vadijo. After that, we will take a short break, and when we return, our consultants from JV Ingidro Process L will guide us through the design work and the environmental and social instruments for the project. We will then open the floor for questions and dialogue before closing the session. With that said, let us begin. I now invite NRPB Director, Mr. Claret Connor, to deliver opening remarks.
Technology. Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Bedminster, for those opening remarks. And I look over the audience and I see a bunch of faces of very enthusiastic persons, some colleagues and some visitors and all stakeholders. And I thank you for being here tonight. Your participation means a great deal to all of us. As many of you are aware, the NRPB National Recovery Program Bureau began its work focused on urgent recovery reconstruction. In the early years, our role was to repair what was damaged and restore essential services after a national crisis. But as the trust fund progressed, so did our mandate. We shifted from rebuilding what was lost to helping government strengthen entire sectors such as solid waste, mental health, sectors in education, and today in wastewater management. This work aligns closely with the government's broader commitment to strengthening essential public services and ensuring healthier, safer communities across our beautiful island. Wastewater is not an invisible issue. This morning, the minister and I were on one of our radio programs in an interview talking about tonight, and the host reminded us that waste is not a sexy topic, but the minister assured us that we will make waste sexy. It has become a concern, however, for all of us because wastewater can affect our health and our environment and the way we experience and live in our communities, talking about the quality of life. That is why improving how we manage wastewater is not simply an engineering exercise. It is a public health priority and a critical investment in the future of our island. The work you will hear about tonight is the product of a team of highly skilled engineers, environmental specialists, and technical professionals who have spent months studying our system, reviewing options, and identifying what we need or what needs to be done in this area. Their work is detailed and rigorous, but it cannot stand alone. It must also be informed by the people who live here, and I'm looking out at you, by our experiences, your questions, and your insights. That is why consultations like this matters. Our input helps sharpen the decisions that must be made before designs are finalized and implementation begins. It makes the project stronger, more grounded, and more responsive to the real challenges our neighborhood face daily. We also know that any major infrastructure will bring temporary inconveniences, but a few months of disruption protects us from years of health risk, and environmental damage. It will keep the end goal in sight: cleaner communities, safer water systems, and a healthier island. The journey becomes easier to navigate when we do this together. Tonight, you will hear from the government about its broader vision for wastewater management. The NRPB team will walk you through the project and the work that is underway. Our technical partners will outline the approach being developed to develop our systems in a sustainable and responsible way, and together this forms the basis for the dialogue that we hope you will not only participate in, but also make significant contributions to. This session is not formality. This is challenging work, but it is also helpful work because every improvement we make today helps secure a stronger, cleaner, and more resilient Sint Maarten for generations that will follow. No one wants to see wastewater in places where our children play, where we gather as a community, or where even we live. We all deserve a better. We all deserve better, and this project is part of building a better future. So I thank you for taking the time out to be here and for being part of this very important dialogue and conversation. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, Director Claret, for those opening remarks. We will now go or hear from the Honorable Minister of Rami, Mr. Patrice Gomes. Minister, the floor is yours. Kindly welcome him to the lectern.
Good evening. I think Claret opened the floor very nicely with the icebreaker of this happens to be a very often unsexy conversation. I think one of the reasons why is because we don't like to address a lot of the tough things within this country. But I think with this whole entire project of SWMP, it's really about how do we address things that really matter the most, and it's the quality of life, and really is what this project aims to achieve. So without further ado, SWMP, a cleaner water, stronger Sint Maarten. Why are we here today? We're here as government to inform the community about SWMP, the Sint Maarten Wastewater Management Project, to listen to your questions and concerns, and of course, to improve the project with your feedback. Now, what is SWMP? In short, it's a citywide inclusive sanitation program focused on the cul-de-sac basin. It's a US $25 million package, which includes a $10 million grant from the trust fund and $15 million counterpart financing from the Government of Sint Maarten. Its overall objective is to expand the sewer network and upgrade the ATLH Road treatment plant. So, of course, the question always becomes, why are we doing a project like this? What is the context? So the current situation is actually less than 11% of all properties on the Dutch side are currently connected to the public sewer system. As many of us know, in all the communities we come from, many septic tanks overflow during heavy rain. And of course, I say overflow because we oftentimes know that could be natural, but oftentimes we do recognize and know that we ourselves as a population would put those things out there. More than 90,000 kilograms of nitrogen per year enters the Great Salt Pond. Yeah. And of course we have, thank you. And of course we have about 9,000 kilograms of nitrogen per year that enters the Great Salt Pond. Large part of that comes from effluent runoff of sewage systems. And of course, those are for two reasons. One, of course, because of aging infrastructure challenges, but also because a number of persons, as I indicated earlier, continue to illegally dump raw sewage into our communities. Now, there are a number of key challenges that cause a lot of these problems, and of course that we aim to address through a number of interventions. One of the first challenges is a rapid tourism growth over the number of decades, which has increases wastewater loads across our communities. Secondly, is of course the supply chain delays. And thirdly, the issue of public awareness, community buy-in. Wastewater is out of sight, out of mind, a government's problem. And this we aim to change with this project. Wastewater is not a government problem. Wastewater is a us problem. So what are the project objectives? The first, of course, is to protect public health and marine ecosystems. Most naturally, a clean environment, better quality of life, and improved infrastructure due to the lack of sewage on roads safeguards our tourism, which is the backbone of our economy. And of course, provide reliable, climate-resilient sanitation for all persons. The project itself has the core following solutions to achieve this. The connection of up to 1,400 new household connections in the cul-de-sac basin, the increase of treatment capacity at the 88 Road wastewater treatment plant, and most importantly, and I think what's really key today, is the behavior change campaign. As Minister of Romy, I can put all the infrastructure in place to support and manage wastewater. But if as a community we continue to illegally dump or choose not to connect and not dispose of sewage correctly, we're going to have a problem. So of course, it takes all of us in the community, and I think a very key part of the behavioral change campaign is what we as government are going to do to ensure that compliance, but also that awareness of how things should go. So one of the key things we're focusing on, very much like our solid waste project, is the creation of a waste authority to manage the future of sewage wastewater treatment. Secondly, the introduction of household contributions. Back to Claret's statement from this morning, nobody thinks that paying more is sexy. But the reality is, if you don't pay for services that we need, what's even less sexy is sewage on the road. So a big part of this is also how do we actually manage the future of wastewater is through a very strong financial framework, which will include, of course, household contributions. Now, finally, the project timeline. I won't go too much in detail, of course, because I think this will be covered more by the project lead on this. But in short, 2024 will see a detailed design of the environmental impact assessment. 2025 will see a procurement and contractor mobilization. So, of course, 2024 has already passed. 2025, looking at procurement and contractor mobilization. 2026, 2027, the actual project. So a large part of what's going to be happening is network construction and plant upgrades. We're very, very aware that the cul-de-sac region is a most naturally congested area. You either live there, one of your children goes to school there, you have a godchild going to school there. Most of the population has some element of activity going on in that area. So a large part of what we're going to be doing, in particular with the Ministry of Justice, is looking at how we mitigate the nuisance from the planned intervention. This is things such as far as, for example, alternate routes in and out of the cul-de-sac area, very much scheduling and monitoring what happens in and out of that cul-de-sac throughout the day to mitigate the impact, of course, of large-scale construction. And then finally, of course, in 2028, the aim is to commission and start of household connections throughout the cul-de-sac basin. And of course, I'll let the project team indicate how exactly those connections will happen once the main sewer line comes into the ground. Of course, the question always becomes, who benefits? And I think this figure is incorrect. It's definitely more than 11,000 residents who will gain direct sewer connection. The entire population, roughly 43,000 people in Sint Maarten, will enjoy cleaner coastal water. Why? Because what we've seen over the past, at least from me as minister for the last year, you've witnessed a lot of persons who empty raw sewage into stormwater drains. So where naturally clean water should be running, you oftentimes see sewage water. That sewage water runs down the cul-de-sac basin, ends up in the ponds and into the sea. Now again, not only for the sake of tourism, but also a large part of Sint Maarten does bathe in the Great Bay Basin. So it's not only about tourism, and I think the idea of this project is really to bring home that we have to stop looking at environmental protection as something for persons not from here or for tourists. It really does benefit us in our quality of life. No one wants to walk through sewage water or swim in it. And then, of course, 1.5 million cruise tourism, 400,000 stayover guests protected from beach closures. As you can imagine, oftentimes, and it happens quite a lot on the front side, when there's a large amount of effluent into the waters, beaches have to close. And of course, if your economy depends on tourism, people lying on the beach means drink money. If you don't have that, you have an economic hit. Very much the same way it means that if you can't go to the beach as a local, it impacts as well your experience as a resident. So it's really bridging the gap to recognize that this is more than just an infrastructure project. This is really about environment and community building. At a glance, the benefits: health, fewer waterborne diseases, tourism, clean swimmable bays, and sustained jobs and revenue. Environment, impactful nitrogen load reduction to freshwater pond and great salt pond. And of course, jobs. An estimated 120 construction jobs and an additional 10 to 15 long-term operation and management positions become available with the introduction of this project. So, what do we need from you? Connect early when sewer mains reach your street. I think that's very critical. A large part of this project will, of course, cover those connections as part of the project scope. So the earlier you get in, the more likely you are to be connected as part of the project budget. Very simple, keep wipes, oils, and grease out of the drains. We don't have to wait for this project to come to cul-de-sac to start doing the right thing. Oil, sewage does not belong in our drains. And I can't recall how many times as Minister of Romy, I have been called, Minister, there's sewage running in my road. Okay, can you file an official complaint? No, I don't want my name out there, just send somebody to come and see. The reality is, and I told everybody, it really takes community in all of us. Nobody wants to be known as a snitch, so to speak. But if you really look at how what we're trying to do here, it's really about community engagement and doing your part. Being a good neighbor is more than just sharing a mango or some sugar. It's really about making sure that what you wouldn't want for yourself, you don't do to other people as well. And most important for everybody, both online and here, share your feedback. There is an active QR code in the front, and I think it will be shared at the online as well. And your emails to any questions, and really stay engaged about this project or what we're doing as a government. And I think finally, phase 2, and I got this question this morning on the radio, where do we go from here? So currently we know there's been several projects regarding sewage in Sint Maarten. It's actually one of the things we have a very long history with doing, and a lot of experts both in the Ministry of ROMI and within the NRPB on this. So we're very confident that this will be a successful project. But I think what's very more important is what do you do after this project is done? So I'm actually very happy to announce here today that the 11th EDF, which is a project I remember in my time at Foreign Affairs when we did this back in 2013, the signing of this agreement for the finalization of the Dutch Quarter Basin community connections, which have never actually materialized. We recently, as Ministry of ROMI, with the UNOPS, signed on to an agreement to extend sewage connections in Dutch Quarter. This year, we finalized the connection of the lifting station. And of course, we're very proud to announce as well that in tandem with the United Nations Office of Product Services, we will be finalizing those product connections for the homes in Dutch Quarter at the same time that we're doing this project in cul-de-sac. So very important is to be aware there'll be a lot of infrastructure projects in the next 18 months, starting in Q4 of next year. We're very proud of it, of course, because there's some long-standing issues within the government that are still pending, but we are very cognizant of the fact that we have to do a lot of mitigation work to sort of minimize the nuisance of infra projects in the too densely populated areas of the country. The remaining works, of course, will be completed, and the government has, of course, the continued momentum to ensure that the project is completed successfully. And of course, finally, the goal is 100% safely managed sanitation by the mid-2030s. In closing, wastewater management is community engagement management. Let's act together so that what's flushed in the cul-de-sac basin doesn't end up in Great Bay. Of course, we have a question segment toward the end, but I understood, some time for one or two very burning questions, if there are any at this current moment in time. If not, thank you. And, and there we go. Mike. 1 second, just get the mic for you so we can all hear you, both here and online.
No, I looking at your slide, I saw that you said in terms of connections that were done, but I have one upmaking. In terms of new connections, any connection or any residential building or whatever as such, isn't it so that it would be more beneficial for VROMI that when you're issuing a building permit to have that automatically, if that area actually have sewage running?
So, yeah.
So to make it clear, if I'm going to give one a building permit, and in that area which the building is going to be erected, that you actually have sewage running, that would be automatically that person actually has a permit to connect directly to the sewage system.
Yeah, so exactly. So going forward, what that means is you have an ability to connect to the main sewage line. Once it's in, there would most likely be an obligation to connect unless you can prove otherwise. These are discussions that are currently ongoing. But the first and foremost is if there is an ability to connect to future homes to the main sewage line, that will be an obligation. The discussion, of course, is going on that if persons decide to opt out of it, they have to ensure and provide a very clear solution for how they plan to manage their sewage going forward.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gums. We are now going to move into our first project presentation. Please, and I should mention, we do have some key messages before I forget. So one of the key message from Minister Gums is making Sint Maarten cleaner and healthier. The second one, working today for a better tomorrow. And the third key message, community partnerships is essential. It takes all of us. Thank you once again, Minister Gums, for that presentation, that detailed presentation. We now move into our first project presentation. Please welcome SWMP Project Manager, Mr. Alvaro Vadillo, who will provide an overview of the Sint Maarten Wastewater Management Project. Kindly help me welcome him to the lectern.
Good evening. I'm going to make a quick overview of the project that was briefly introduced by the minister. This is SWMP. I'm going to present overall a snapshot of the project, what is in the pipeline, what is the relation with the future of the sector in Sint Maarten, and then a brief introduction of the project, engineering project that will be implemented by next year. So I will present also the time frame, and also technical details will be presented in the next presentation. So just a brief story of where this project is coming from. The trust fund, as you know, was established after the Hurricane Irma in 2017, and then based on the funds mobilized by the government of the Netherlands and managed by the World Bank, the NRPB was created on behalf of the government just to implement the funds as an implementing unit. And then out of this creation of the unit, number of projects 10 were identified and to implement the funds. So one of those is the one that we are presenting now, which is SWMP, Sint Maarten Wastewater Management Project. So the official start date was in August 24. The funding was already mentioned by the minister, but outside the 25 million that are being already mobilized, there are 5 extra million potentially that are going to be already confirmed, but they're going to be part also of the funding. The main objectives of this project is not only the infrastructure that were presented, or about the expansion of the network and also the upgrading of the plant. It's going to be also to strengthen the capacity of the sector, more specifically Minister of Romy, just to cope with the challenge of the management of the wastewater in Sint Maarten. Support also the development of a national wastewater strategy, just to guide policy for the future expansion, and also develop a model, including a financial framework model as well, to ensure sustainability to the system, because once all the infrastructure are done, we have to ensure that they are going to be sustainable. And finally, this project has one of the objectives is to establish a system to monitor the quality of the seawater coastal area and also in water bodies, inland water bodies. In pipeline, immediately we have the main project, engineering project, which is the expansion of the wastewater network in cul-de-sac and improvements of the plant. More technical details would be provided in this presentation. We had also an independent review of the sludge management approach. As you know, this is a high-risk activity dealing with the sludge produced in the wastewater treatment plant. Early next year, we'll start conducting an inventory of households that are potentially being connected to the network. So we need to make this inventory, and then also to having an overview of the how the individual connection have to be done, and budget and everything, just before contracting the next contract, which is the extension of the network, but also the private connection that has to be in parallel. I will show you a schema right now. And then at the same time, there is these additional funds that I was mentioning earlier, are going to be dedicated to the beautification of the area. So when opening streets, opening asphalt, just to put pipes, some intervention to improve the layout of the environment will be also included. Now we are in the design phase. And finally, in order to implement the last objective I presented earlier, we are going to start with the monitoring of the water quality. First, to see how this intervention is affecting in terms of improvement of the environment. So in order to understand how this project is fitting with the future of the sector, this project, one of the objectives is support to the government roles in as a planner, as a regulator, because these figures now are a bit vague in legislation. Also, this project will support also to update the policies and ordinance that is now in application, but there are some gaps in this legislation. So we are working with the Ministry of Romy just to upgrade these policies and this legal framework. And also to support the institutional strength of Ministry of Romy as a regulator, as a policymaker in the sector, and then to support this, to create a sustainable financial model, just to ensure that it's going to be sustainable in the future. Also, one of the objectives is related to the sector is to promote the partnership and also innovation. So the private sector engagement is very important, and to support the national strategy wastewater to ensure the future expansion is done following the policy. And the overall objective, the overall intervention that is related with the sector is the main focus is, as the minister mentioned earlier, to reduce the pollution in water bodies. So more precisely, this project, the area of intervention is going to be cul-de-sac with some particularities that I will explain, and also the improvement of the treatment plant that is in the fresh pond. The expansion, this is in the phase of design. We are now only on the design. Is the picture you see on the screen. So the design is taking the whole cul-de-sac right now. These are the red pipes you see on the screen. The black spots are the condominial system that already exist. So this project will connect those condominial systems that are now disconnected to the main system, and then to connect all the whole area to the treatment plant. Also ensuring that the improvements that are going to be done in the plant, will absorb any development, future development in Dutch Quarter, as the minister just mentioned earlier. These two projects that are also in the pipeline. This is in the design phase. But these are the areas of cul-de-sac that we are now working with the Ministry of Romit for the design of the network. The intervention in terms of private connections are going to be in parallel. So at the same time that we are working on the expansion of the network, in parallel, we're working on the private connection, because at the same time that the pipes are installed in the street, we have to ensure that the connection are done, so we don't have to intervene twice in the same place, bothering the population twice. So we do everything at the same time. So in terms of private connection, it's very important to understand this picture is self-explanatory. But essentially, the brown color on the left is the main project, is the main pipes that are going to be installed. The orange, which is the private domain, will be the second contract that will run in parallel. So at the same time that the construction company will be installing the red pipes, the left side, all the construction company will be connecting household, the orange phase. But we have to keep in mind and don't forget that the yellow part is the responsibility of the owner. So this project is not intervening within the buildings. This project will not repair piping, kitchens, bathrooms. So the intervention is from the connection box, house connection drain there, till the main pipe. So this is the area of intervention is 1 and 2, red and orange. Yellow is the responsibility of each household there. But we have a big challenge in this project. I presented the whole area of intervention, the design that we are working with the Ministry of Romit to develop the whole design or engineering project, but we have a gap of funds. If we take on the left side the goals of this project, which are the private connection, the beautification, the network, the support to Ministry of Romit and the regulatory framework, sustainable financing. So we have available financing only for a percentage of this goal. So because of this gap, we are working with the Ministry of Romit to identify, and this is very important, within the area of intervention, the most priority sub-areas. So in this list that I presented before of neighborhoods in cul-de-sac, we are working just to identify where are the priorities following this criteria that have been agreed by the Ministry of Romit, which is essentially prioritize the impact of cost-efficient investment. So when installing pipes, we have to see how many people are going to be connected. So it's not the same installing a pipe where only 2 buildings are going to be connected and all the street where many others. So there is a lot of elements to take into consideration to make the prioritization. So we are working on this. We cannot anticipate the areas. We are just saying that it's going to be within cul-de-sac. So basically, yep, that was the last slide. So basically, the challenge that we have now is this identification of the main areas of intervention. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Vadijo. for that project overview. So we have some key messages to my right, your left. Let's see if I can read this properly. Improving the coverage and performance of the wastewater system in St. Maarten for improved sanitation outcome. The second key message, strengthening of the legal, policy, and regulatory framework in the wastewater sector. Thirdly, implementation of project activity within available budgetary means, impact. And the last, supporting the Government of St. Maarten's vision for sustainable wastewater management. I place quite an emphasis on the last one. We will now pause for a brief recess. It is currently 7:13, so I'm going to ask you to return to your seats promptly at 7:23 so we can resume the evening's program. And if you have not registered yet, please take a moment to do so. There should be some clipboards to the front of the room. And there's also some light refreshments. So we have 10 minutes to soak in all the information that you have received so we can be prepared for the second presentation block. Next 10 minutes. Thank you. social instruments prepared for the project. Okay, our invited expert presenters from JV Ingidro Prosiege will walk us through the planned work and help us understand what these components mean for the community and for the project as it moves forward towards implementation. Presenting for this particular segment are two individuals, Ms. Victoria Diore and Susana Baptista. Yes. We now invite you both to begin. Kindly welcome to the lectern. Do you need a visual?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Oops. Okay, just to cover, we will be presenting the design, the technical design of the wastewater project we've been talking about. We'll first talk about the current situation, the current sewer situation, and the future development, and also mention some environmental and social mitigation measures that will be implemented during the construction phase. And then we'll talk about the rehabilitation works that will go on at the wastewater treatment plant at Illich Road. We'll also refer to the current situations, the main aspects of wastewater treatment and operation processes, and we'll explain the interventions that will take place in the treatment plant and future situation, and also talk about the principal impacts and proposed mitigation measures in these works. Okay, so you can see in this slide the layout of the existing sewage network. You've got highlighted the houses or the buildings that are currently connected into the sewer system. And in yellow is the layout of the existing sewer network. There are about 28 kilometers of pipe work in place, mostly PVC pipes, and with diameters varying from 110 millimeters to 500 millimeters. This network was built from the 1990s onwards. Some of it is quite recent. There are also some pumping stations and pressure mains that will lead all the sewer system into the wastewater treatment plant, which is located in this area. There are presently 13 pumping stations working. Over here is you can see highlighted the areas that are presently sewered. You've got over here there's a main sewer line that goes down LB Scott Road and all the way into wastewater treatment plant. There's the Ebenezer and South Reward areas that are sewered according to they have a sort of a simplified sewer system with small diameter pipes, a lot of them laid in private properties, and we call this sort of a condominial system, which then connects into the main sewer system, the public sewer system. This network is quite small diameter pipes, so we haven't been able to inspect these pipes, or Veromi hasn't been able to do an inspection in these pipes and do a rigorous cadastre of the existing system. In St. John's, down here, a steg system is also in place. This is a system where septic tanks exist and overflow into small diameter pipe work. It's all a sort of a gravity system. St. Peter's is also sewered and connected into the LB Scott system. According to our appraisal and discussions with the operators, the system functions well. Any issues that arise have been resolved by the operation people, by the operation teams. This is a layout of the future network that's being under the process of being designed. This will take into account not only the existing buildings and built-up areas, it will also take into account future developments. So you'll see over here in green these higher systems, which will be developed as the density of construction in these areas will go up in the future. And they'll be sewered in a process that will be similar to the St. John's estate. So it'll be a sort of a condominial system. Then you've got in red all the pipework that will be built, that will be designed as part of this project. This will have diameters in PVC from 200 to 315 millimeters. It comprises more or less 19 kilometers of sewer network and 2,800 sewer connections. It's important to keep in mind that this isn't going to be one project to be built at this moment. It's going to be progress as times go on. The government will make a development plan for implementing all this pipework. So it'll be work in progress. Some part of it will be built as part of this investment and this financing that the Minister has mentioned. And as part of work in progress, the rest of the sewer network will be built at later stages. Oops, sorry. Over here is just a sort of a detailed image of the neighborhoods that will be covered by the sewer network, which will include South Reward, St. Peter's, Betty's Estate, the Retreat Estate, Saunders, Mary's Fancy Industry, Zegersgut, Clay Hill, and Vellagelgan. The network layout may be subject to minor adjustments as the project progresses, but this is a basic layout we are considering.
Good evening. I am addressing now the environmental and social impacts of this sewer network expansion. Sorry, I'm small. The construction of the sewer system will involve the excavation of trenches that will go along the main roads and sometimes crossing the streets. And with this construction, there are some impacts that are listed here. So we have works that may take place in private properties. There will be probably noise and dust from the traffic and the trenching activities. There will be accessibility issues regarding the connection with the houses because there will be trenches and they have to have connections. The most important is the traffic disturbance because this will be done on streets, on roads. They may have been closure of some streets and may also detours of the traffic. But for these main impacts, there will be mitigation measures that will be implemented. For instance, crossings will be placed for cars and pedestrians, like this in photo. Accessibility to houses and business will always be assured. Traffic signs will be placed to warn drivers about road conditions and potential detours, as I said earlier. Excavated soil will be removed frequently. Community will be informed in advance about upcoming works. Trenching lengths will be kept as minimal as possible and closed as soon as possible also. Works, this is important, works will take place only, sorry, what's happened here? It was not me. Okay. Works will take place only during working hours and noise will be avoided early in the morning. To address some complaints that may occur or to provide information to the community, there will be a grievance mechanism. The contractors will have a point of contact person for people to raise concerns. NRPB will have a grievance redress mechanisms to receive and address complaints. Local service will take place to provide information and agree on connection terms. In connection terms, we are talking with those when the trash is near a house and we have to have access to the house. Flyers will be distributed a few weeks before the start of the works for people to be aware of the construction. And also prior to the beginning of the construction, newspapers, radio, and social media information will be provided for all the community. Okay, I will give the word to my colleague now.
Okay, so the wastewater treatment plant at Illidge Road over here is the only public wastewater treatment plant that exists in Sint Maarten. It was originally built in 1992 and had a major refurbishment in 2013. It is designed to service the Greater Philipsburg area, which includes the Upper Princess Quarter, the Lower Princess Quarter, and other sewer districts already covered by sewer networks, and also, of course, the cul-de-sac. The wastewater treatment plant was designed for a capacity of 38,759 inhabitants and has a total capacity of 4,715 cubic meters per day. This is the design capacity. It's not the flow that goes into the wastewater treatment plant. Just to have an idea, this would correspond to 2 to 3 Olympic swimming pools per day. The facility occupies an area of approximately 1.12 hectares. That would mean approximately 2 football fields. Over here you can see in the first photograph, sorry. The wastewater treatment plant receives also the septic trucks, that are transported into the wastewater treatment plants, emptied regularly and transported to the treatment plant. These are emptied into a pit and then sent into the treatment process. Okay, the volume that arrives in septic trucks is quite significant. It's 20 to 30% of the total influent volume. And during the wet periods where there's a larger overflow of the septic tanks, this proportion is even higher. The average inflow into the wastewater treatment plant is 1,743 cubic meters per day at this moment. The treatment plant produces sludge that's dried in some beds, drying beds, and then sent to landfill. And approximately 15 trucks of sludge are sent every month to landfill. Okay, future numbers. To design the refurbishments in the treatment plant, we've done population projections for the years 2030, 2040, and 2055. The population will grow from the present 27,700 inhabitants to 33,300 in 2040, 38,000 in 2055. So the wastewater flows will grow approximately 40% from 4,600 to 6,400 cubic meters per day. So we'll go from more or less 1.8 Olympic swimming pools per day to 2.8 Olympic swimming pools per day. The facility will be contained within its current limits of 1.2 hectares. As the network expands, the number of septic discharges into the wastewater treatment plant will be reduced. And we estimate at the project horizon that there will be about 17 trucks a day emptying into the treatment plant. The average number of sludge trucks that take sludge to be dehydrated, sludge to be landfilled, will be around 22 trucks per month. This value will go up as the volume of sewage to be treated will also go up in the future years. In the overall, we estimate that the number of trucks operating back and forth from the treatment plant will decrease from 70 a day to approximately 39 a day. Okay, over here to show you the layout of the treatment plant. We've got in this area, the area where the septic tank, where the trucks empty the septic tanks into the wastewater treatment plant. The flow will go from here into the treatment line, into a pumping station in this area. And over here, the wastewater will be subject to fine screening. This aims to remove sort of solids from 6 millimeters upwards from the wastewater treatment plant. From here, the wastewater goes into the biological process, which is done in these tanks. So we've got a collection of what we call selectors and aerobic tanks, and this large aerobic oxidation ditch. This is a very resilient process. The wastewater, basically a large volume of wastewater circulates in this area. It sort of goes from aerated areas to mixing areas. And this process, basically the organic matter that's present in the sewers is decomposed by the bacteria that's cultivated in these tanks. The bacteria consumes the organic matter, and basically it promotes a biological treatment of the wastewater. It's also very effective to remove phosphorus and nitrogen from the wastewater. As the wastewater goes into these tanks, it also has to leave the tanks, and it's sent to a settling, what we call a settling tank or clarifier. Over here, we separate basically this is a very still tank with very low velocities, so all the solids settle to the bottom of the tank, and the transparent clean water overflows from the top of the tank. And this clean water that overflows is sent through this line into the fresh pond. And we have over here in this area the measurement of the wastewater flow. The sludge at the bottom of this tank is collected to a thickener and then sent to these sludge drying beds to be dried and then transported to landfill. We've also got some auxiliary installations, which are the operator's building with all the electrical switchboards, etc., a laboratory, and also a generator, power generator, which will guarantees that the treatment plant functions in case of power outage. Okay, so this is just a scheme of the various phases I've been mentioning to you. So we've got the septic tanks arriving, the fine screens, selectors, an oxidation ditch, then the settling tank, and the effluent discharged into the pond. And we've got a parallel sludge line that goes first to a thickener, then to the drying bed, and then it's taken by open trucks to a landfill. What we're going to do in this plant is we're going to put over here a concrete barrier behind the area where the septic trucks are emptied, so to protect these houses over here, these buildings, from splashes that can occur while the septic tanks are being built, while the septic tanks are emptied. Over here, we're going to build an area to do some finer treatment of the septic sewage. So we'll do a screening of the septic sewage, and it'll be connected from the trucks through a pipe connection into the pre-treatment station and then sent to the sump. And that will also prevent odors and vectors of the waste of the raw sewage being spread in this area. Over here, we're going to duplicate the fine screens just to give more resilience to the plant. We're also going to replace the mechanical equipment that's in this tank, as it's been here for some years. It was, this part of the plant was built in 2013, and by now it's in need of replacement, even though it is actually working well still, but we did want to reduce risks of future maintenance problems. We're also going to build a new dehydration building, sludge dehydration. So all these sludge drying beds will be decommissioned, and the sludge will be sent to mechanical equipment in this building to be dried and sent off from here to the landfill. So also there'll be a reduction of smells and also disturbances from the operation of these drying beds. Over here in the operating building, we're also going to replace the SCADA system so that to modernize the automation of the treatment system. This is the same scheme, but just referring the various processes we've mentioned. I forgot to mention in the slide before that in the future we can, if needed, install a chemical precipitation of the phosphorus. This will be installed only if required at some future stage, because there are some risks associated to storage of chemicals and also the buildup of sludge. And also a chlorination system or UV disinfection system can be installed at a later stage if the water quality or demands in the fresh pond would demand a disinfection system. And also what's planned is that the sludge will be transported in closed trucks so that the populations around the plant won't feel the impacts of the sludge transportation. Okay.
Thank you very much again. I will focus again on the environmental social impacts, now on the wastewater treatment plant. There are some important impacts, but I will focus only on 4, mainly on odor, noise, sludge management, and the quality of the effluent discharges in the fresh pond. There are other impacts, but I think this is the main impacts that we can focus on. Regarding the odor, we analyzed the current situation regarding the odor around the wastewater treatment plant. We did 2 approaches. First, we did a local inquiry, a survey inquiry, with face-to-face interviews with about 122 people living nearby the wastewater treatment plant, either residents or business owners. And the replies they have is the odor is not a specific, it's not an important nuisance. So, but however, they say that the septic tracks, when they arrive to the wastewater treatment plant, they may emit some odors, but it's not an important impact. We also did a mathematical model, ran a mathematical model to see the impact of some three specific compounds that are associated with the wastewater treatment plant. For instance, we have the hydrogen sulfide that has a rotten egg odor. We have the ammonia that smells like urine. And we have also the methane ethyl that smells like rotten cabbage. So it has a distinctive smell that is always associated with wastewater treatment plants. We did that mathematical model, and we found out, based on reference values of the Netherlands legislation, is very strict, that there is all the sensitive receivers that we identify are complying with these legal thresholds of the Netherlands legislations. So currently, it seems that the impact of the wastewater treatment plant for the odor is negligible, that we can say that. We did the same for the future situation. So we are going to implement some project mitigation measures, as my colleague explained to you. We have in the discharge of the septic tanks, we have, as you see in the earlier photo, I think maybe you can go back, but nowadays the trucks are discharging the septic without any protection. So there are splashes, and now we will have a pipe, a connecting pipe, so there will be no discharges and will be no odor. So this is a very important measure. The sludge drying beds, which is the main source of odor, also will be deactivated, as Victoria said, and will be replaced by the dewatering building that will have better sludge, better dry sludge with less odor, and we'll also have filters for odor. So the project that we are implementing will decrease the situation. It's not bad, but it will be better. So it will be a project that will improve the situation. And the other mitigation that is very important, the sludge trucks, now are not covered. So when they are going to the landfill, the odor is felt. Now all the dewatering plant will have a connection also directly to containers. So the trucks will have containers very close, so the odor will not be felt also. So these four simple measures, simple project measures, will enable to have a better air quality for the surrounding neighborhoods. Sorry, too fast. Now, regarding the noise, we have, we also did in the local survey. We also asked about the noise. What do you think? Do you hear noise from the wastewater treatment plant? And the replies was also no. It's not an impact. It's not a significant impact. But as for the odor, the trucks sometimes, even when the wind is calmer, that was their reply. When there is no wind, they sense the noise trucks. Besides that, we did two site measurements with a sonometer, a sound meter, and we found out that there is already high noise levels in that area, mainly because of the road traffic. And also the trucks, but mainly because of the road traffic. So, as for the odor, we are going to implement also some measures for mitigating this impact. As my colleague said, the total number of trucks in the future will decrease. We'll pass from 17 to about 39. So that is a positive impact. That concrete barrier that will be placed between the southern buildings and the discharge of the septic tracks will also mitigate the noise impact for that south buildings. There will be replacement of the mechanical equipment for the aeration tank that could have insulation for there. Nowadays, there is higher technology equipment that we can replace now. Since we are going to replace it, let us replace with better equipment. And also the dewater building, it will be a new equipment in the wastewater treatment plant. It will be fully enclosed so that we don't have noise impact. So, as I said, for the odor, the noise will be better with the future upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant. Other impact that is also important is the sludge management, because we need to have less, we'll have a higher number of trucks, as my colleague said, because of the population increase. We have more population connected to the wastewater treatment plant, so we'll have more sludge. But the dewatering process that we will be implementing is better because the volume of the sludge will decrease. And the other important aspect is the containment of that sludge in the trucks. So we will have less volume, better quality, and less odor, and the sludge are not contaminated with heavy metals. So this is important. Maybe a future use on other sources than the landfill could be predicted. So we have also a better sludge management in the future upgrade. The final impact that I think it's the most important, because Fresh Pond is an important bird area. We have to, I'm a biologist also, and we have to have concerns about the biodiversity on that area. We have made an assessment of the effluent quality that is currently being discharged in the fresh pond. And they are with some upgrades that our consultant, our team, our experts from our team talked with the current operator, where those water quality, this effluent quality, comply with the legal thresholds. So especially for phosphorus and nitrogen could cause a growth of algae in the fresh pond. So they are complying, and the wastewater treatment plant is functionally properly. So, but we want to function better. So that's why we are improving it. For the future effluent quality, what is I think the main impact, positive impact, is the expansion of the sewer network. So as the minister said in the beginning, if we expand the sewer network, there will be less runoffs of non-treated wastewater for the fresh pond. So that is the major impact and the major difference with the current situation. With the upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant, the phosphorus concentration is expected to decrease, and the nitrogen will increase slightly, but we made an assessment. You could check on the environmental and social impact assessment. There will be no accumulation, so it's not expected that the wastewater treatment plant will cause eutrophication, will cause the growth of algae in the fresh pond. Besides this, we also made an assessment in the environmental document that the increase in flow related to the increase of population will not change the current system that ROMI has regarding the discharges of the fresh pond to the Great Bay. So they will maintain more or less the same. So there will be no flooding. I think this is an important issue to know, to understand and to predict. And there will be no differences with the current situation, which is good. Also, we also assess that the fresh pond also has a renewal rate to avoid this eutrophication. It has a natural renewal rate. Nevertheless, we know that the upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant will not cause any difference, and we improve the water quality. Nevertheless, there will be a monitoring plan, or already is a monitoring plan of the natural wetlands of the Sint Maarten. NRPB is also predicting that in their goals, and the periodic monitoring of the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant will also be maintained. So, as I said, for main impacts, odor, noise, sludge management, and water quality, we are expecting that this upgrade will improve all those impacts. Now it's just some few aspects of the construction stage. As earlier we said, for the sewer network, these are some construction aspects that I wanted you to understand. Works will be limited to the existing facility. There will be no construction outside the facility of the wastewater treatment plant. The construction site will be placed inside the facility, so we are not expecting that other areas may be occupied. The main works will be some land movement with some trenches for the hydraulic system, civil works for the dewatering building. It's a small building, so it will not take much time, and the trenches. The construction waste will be properly conditioned. The construction phase is also expected to last no more than 12 months, so it's a small period. As for the sewer network, the construction will be performed during daytime, only during daytime at working hours. Yes, for the sewer system, a grievance redress mechanism will also be implemented. Just to finish.
Okay, just to conclude, the proposed sewer net in the cul-de-sac area is designed to cover the already developed areas and the expansion that will happen up to 2050. and also taking into account population growth, which includes growth in tourism within the design horizon. And along this period, 2050, 2,830 new household connections will be built. This project has the main, an important aspect is that the sewer overflows into the surface water will be reduced, and also the construction stage will adopt various mitigation measures to avoid nuisance to the nearest households and commercial and service areas, and also manage traffic disturbances, which are inevitable during the sewer network intervention. The upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant will improve the treatment process. It'll improve the resilience of the plant and also allow the treatment of more households from the cul-de-sac, Lower Princess Quarter and Philipsburg districts. The total number of trucks required for emptying septic tanks will be reduced, and the transportation of sludge will also be decreased. The odor, noise, and sludge management of the treated effluent will improve. Several mitigation measures will be set in place during the construction phase to minimize disturbances. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening, and we're available if anybody would like to ask any questions. Okay.
Thank you, Victoria Diore and Susana Baptista, for that technical presentation, as well as the key insights into the environmental and social impact assessment and the environmental and social management plan. I am going to go straight into some key takeaways. I'm going to put it on my phone because this is clearer here. All right, so the first one, the project will expand the sewer network in the cul-de-sac district, which will be designed for the expansion of built-up areas and population growth. The second key takeaway, risk of sewer overflows to surface waters will be reduced. Third, the Illich Road wastewater treatment plant will have process improvements to benefit the treated effluent quality, resilience of the plant, and allow the treatment of wastewater of more households. Fourth, the sludge management from the Illich Road plant will improve. And finally, construction stage will adopt several mitigation measures to avoid nuisances, tight tongue at the moment, to the nearest households and commercial service areas and manage traffic disturbances. Those are the 5 key takeaways from Ingiro and Prosiège presentation. I did your business's name justice, didn't I? Great. So, I know it has been a lengthy evening, and the Q&A segment is about to begin. I'm going to ask you to please indulge me. If you can please stand where you're at. Please stand. That feels a little better already, right? Yeah, we're gonna do just so that we relax before the Q&A segment. In this same breath, I'm going to ask the presenters if they can kindly come to the stage while I do this exercise with the audience. So Director Claret Connor, Minister Vrami, Baptista, Diore, and Fadijo. Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do the easiest thing. Just stretch. Stretch to anyone. We're just going to stretch it out. Stretch. That works. And while you're stretching, take a deep breath. Deep breath, inhale, exhale, right? Take your shoulders, and we're just gonna do a little, I'm becoming Clara Reyes at the moment. And move your shoulders, and definitely just a little twinkling of the legs so the blood can flow. Does that work? We feel a little relaxed? All right. So you may have your seats once again. Thank you for indulging my little paranoia. All right. So we appreciate you for your attentive participation throughout the evening. We know that certain sections required deep concentration on the technical matters presented. Your focus and patience demonstrates the strong community support necessary to move this important work forward. So as we open the floor for Q&A, here's how we will manage this session, because I also have online viewers. There are 2 microphones, one to the left and right of the building on each side. When you have a question, please step up to either microphone. Please provide your full name, and if you're speaking on behalf of a company or an organization, kindly let us know. The live stream viewers, we do want to include you, so please feel free to write your questions in the comment section. The team will make sure that I receive as many as possible. We kindly ask, that you please keep your inquiries clear, concise, and focused to ensure we address as many of your critical points as possible. Kindly refrain from offering detailed summaries or extended commentary. We appreciate your cooperation in that matter and in keeping the questions direct and respectful. I'd hate to cut you mid through your question. I really don't want to do that tonight. If I have to, I will, but I don't want to. We will begin. The mics are open for Q&As. So we will begin with the first person at the microphone or online. Is there any questions for the panelists? Was the presentations so clear? Someone 2 persons shaking their head in total agreement with it. 3. Thank you, Mr. Bonkamper. Open the floor with a question.
Good evening. My name is Claudius Bonkamper. I'm a civil servant. I have a few questions. Seeing that nobody wants to ask, I'll ask a few of them. I saw that the cul-de-sac basin was projected to supplement 1,400 homes, I want to believe. The question I have is, those in the hills, how are you going to condomize those? Because you're going to do the condominium system of running lines through other people's property. How does that work? Is that going to be regulated legally, or are you going to ask the neighbor a favor to run a pipe through his yard? How is this going to work? Because that's not clear to me. And I know in Dutch Quarter, they had a lot of problems going from yard to yard with a sewage line. Because I don't want my neighbor shit in my yard. Let me be very clear with that. This is a serious problem because the cul-de-sac basin, majority of the work is in the hills. There isn't much more flat to be done. St. John's is out, Ebenezer is out, South Reward is out. Anything that is there is hill. Saunders is just a few houses at the bottom, but everything goes up in the hill. So how does that work?
Okay. Who will address that question? Thank you, Mr. Bonkamper.
Thank you. Quite a lot of the network, we've got 20 kilometers of network that's going to be built at this stage, well, as part of the design network. I think the parts you're mentioning is the areas that we showed in green in the PowerPoint presentation at the top of the hills. These solutions will have to be designed locally and case by case. Preferably, we will use the access roads to place the sewers for the sewer placement. What we can guarantee is that downstream areas from there will be designed to cope with the flows coming from these top areas. But these top areas aren't entirely developed yet. And as they get developed, the solution for the sewer network at the top of the hills will have to be thought of and designed progressively. But I think it's as part of common sense that we would avoid going through yards and as much as possible use the access roads, which also it's important for the operator also to go through the access roads, as this will it'll facilitate the maintenance of the sewer system. It'll give access to the maintenance teams so that they can go to inspect the sewers and clean them out whenever necessary. And so this will be the preferred option. But as to regulation, we can't, I think that'll be work in progress. That'll be done by the ministry. And at this stage, we have to first start with the most pressing problem, which is the main sewer lines into the treatment plant of the developed areas.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience? For now, I'll go straight into one of our online questions. The speaker or the commenter said, "Thank you for this presentation. Is there more information on how the traffic will be arranged, as we know this is a congested area with schools and houses? Is there more information on how the traffic will be arranged, as we know that this is a congested area with schools and houses?"
Yeah, good evening once again. Thank you. I think that's quite a good question. I think one of the key questions that many have been asking who are aware of the project intervention itself. In the presentation made, I think in the more technical side, there was an explanation of essentially mitigation efforts, rerouting, etc. Of course, those are the suggestions, and they will come to the government. Together with the Minister of Justice, we're already having this discussion about identifying what potential alternate routes can be found. We do already know that there's several roads you can take to escape out of the cul-de-sac area. And they will form parts of the alternate routes. Of course, this is going to be something that's studied along with the experts on the environmental impact side to ensure that it's done properly. But we already have an idea of certain areas that we're looking at to reroute. And of course, over the course of time, they will be shared with the public.
Thank you, Minister Gums. Do we have any additional questions from the audience? Bonkamper, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have plenty of them, and I would like to ask them here, because the last time I send them in writing, I get no answer. They tell me read a report. So I don't want to do that this time. Let me ask a simple question. I see there are contractors in here, maybe they're afraid to ask. Are these projects going to be locally tendered and not internationally? Or are we going to bring in the Chinese and the Turks and all that to do this work? Because everything that's underground until today was done by locals. Just would like to know.
Thank you, Bonkamper.
Just a direct answer to the question. And I think Mr. Bonkamper knows as well that these projects are internationally tendered. And hopefully, local companies will step up to the plate and take the challenge on.
Thank you, Mr. Claret, for that response. Mr. Bonkamper, it seems like you have more questions.
Yeah, I still have a few. I understand the NRPB's position that they are international, but I know there are thresholds on above what norm, above what amount, it becomes an international contract. So we can't chop it down in little pieces that it remains local. I mean, we did it last time with the schools, we saw the results. Let's chop this down. Ebenezer is one piece, Saunders is one, everything is a piece so that it can stay local, so that the locals can get some work. That's all I'm asking, because I can't follow the trend that everything must be international. I know below $1 million or below $2 million, it can be considered local. That's what I'm asking now.
Mr. Buncamper, what's the next question?
Yeah, but the sewage fee. What is the time frame that they're considering to do the sewage fee? Because the expansion is going to cause a good bit of money to maintain. How you can pay for it?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think very much the question in everybody's mind, I think we as Sint Maarten are very good at project, but we're not good at maintenance. And what's really critical, and I said it in the presentation, it kind of echoed throughout several other presentations, is that the only way to make this a success is to have a financial framework. The idea, of course, is that by the time this project is completed, you're going to have a financial framework in place with contributions. So there's legislation that has to be made as part of the project as well. Similar efforts are being done for solid waste as well. And the idea is at the time you have the project completion, there is a legal basis to charge a household contribution, which will go into the financial framework, which will, of course, help us to maintain the entire system going forward.
Thank you, Minister Gomes, for that response. The mics are still open. We have a couple more minutes. If any other person would like to ask a question, Buncamper, the mic is still open to you as well. Huh? Just that you know.
All right, thank you. I have a question. It has to do with the expansion that is being, they said they're going to expand the sewage plant's capacity. And I'm kind of confused because the present sewage plant has a capacity of about 35 to 38,000 people. So what are we expanding exactly right now at the sewage plant when at this point in time, we hardly have 10,000 people properly connected to the sewage plant? So what exactly are we expanding, or are we just changing the mechanism, just for clarity's sake?
Well, the interventions in the wastewater treatment plant were explained during the presentation. But what we've done as part of this project is we've done mathematical models of the process in the wastewater treatment plant. The system that's installed is resilient, and we've also tested it to see how far it can go, or what are the maximum flows and organic loads that the existing treatment plants can support for wastewater. So with this project, we are going to raise the flow that's going into the plants. The sewer network expansion is fundamental for this. So we want to improve the current coverage in the cul-de-sac area at this stage, and at later stages in other parts of the island. So we'll complete the wastewater system, the sewer system will progressively be completed so that the flow into the wastewater treatment plant will go up. In the wastewater treatment plant, we've modeled the existing process system, which we agree is a very good and resilient system. And we've also seen how the equipment installed in the plant, being the screening equipment, the aeration equipment, the mixers, if they have to be changed, and what is the design capacity of this equipment to cope with the maximum flows that go into the treatment plant. The equipment has a project horizon. Normally the standard considered for this sort of equipment is 15 years. So that if we replace equipment at this stage, that equipment will be designed for project horizon of the next 15 years that will come. And after that, you'd have to do a new replacement of equipment so that, we can't risk breakdowns. There's a normal maintenance operations in the mechanical equipment. But the idea is so that they're installed and they're functioning during a 15-year period approximately, and replaced every so often so that there's continuity in the wastewater treatment.
Thank you for your response. Mr. Bankamba, give me 2 minutes or more. Thank you very much. I do have an online question. The individual asks, in regards to the financial model to cover cost of sewage, will there be an offsetting cost coverage that tourists can cover? She's noting Aruba has a model in place for responsible tourism. So in regard to the financial model to cover costs of sewage, will there be an offsetting cost coverage that tourists can cover?
Yeah, thanks actually. And it's interesting because I don't know if the person was aware of listening to, I made this statement a couple of months ago regarding what we found out regarding wastewater treatment in Aruba. And if you're not aware, essentially Aruba struggled for a very long time with their wastewater capacities. And they said to themselves, okay, we don't have enough capacity, we need to invest in infrastructure. Fast forward to COVID, and actually a large part of, obviously there's no hotels, and they very quickly realized that their capacity was actually more than adequate for the local population. So Aruba's model actually went towards, okay, we will have the hotels actually pay for it because we as local population, what we have is adequate for us. So in the discussions we're having now regarding the financial framework and how to pay for it, we are having these discussions around who needs to pay. Also the fact of, for example, it's a question of user, the amounts that you use or put into the system. So you're thinking about large hotel properties, bigger businesses, they would have, for example, a different rate compared to residential or single family homes. So there will be, for example, differentiation in commercial and residential rates. We're also exploring very much like what Aruba does. Can you offset a large amount of that via completely sort of tourists via, for example, the proposed tourism levy, or can you look at it from the point of view of having it be broken down by different consumer budgets, so basically commercial versus residential. So these are discussions we are having, and I'm really happy that that was brought up because I think to make this sustainable, you need to have out-of-the-box thinking of how to innovate your finance. So really and truly, the discussions are ongoing at various levels, I can assure you, and we are considering that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Gums, Minister Gums. I have another question. How will the maintenance of the system be financed in the future, beyond the 25 million? How will the maintenance of the system be financed in the future?
Yeah, so I think very much like what we've been saying, it's the financial framework. Once this $25 million is spent, and I can assure you with infrastructure projects, it's spent relatively quickly. The financial framework will have to fill the gap in terms of how we actually are, one, able to maintain, but also as indicated, how we actually, after the 15-year window, can actually make sure we buy new equipment as well. So the financial framework is really important, i.e., how do you fund it? Through contributions, through a tourism levy. These are how you're going to look at basically maintaining once this project and $25 million is gone. Because what we've seen oftentimes, and I said, we have a lot of projects that we do in Sint Maarten, we don't factor in maintenance long-term.
Thank you for bringing that one up again, especially the maintenance long-term. There's another question that came in as well. What are the future plans for other neighborhoods? Oh, before I go on to that, I will invite the MP to ask his question. MP York.
Good evening, everybody. Darryl York, Member of Parliament. Just to be brief, talking about offsetting and keeping things into account. The project is about 25 million. If I'm not mistaken, the estimate was made back in 2022 on CAPEX funds from 2023. By the time the project commences, it's going to be 2026. The average inflation in construction is averagely 3 to 5% per year. And with these major projects, i.e. basically what was done in Dutch Quarter, the scope at the beginning is not the realization in the end most times. So there was mention was made of 1,400 households. What provisions has NRPB and the ministry taken care of to prevent that now we talk about 1,400 and it doesn't end up being 900? Because a lot of the things, technical aspects are still to be figured out, judging from some of the answers from the questions from Mr. Bonkampa. And in reality, once they figure out, it's more expensive than it was going into it. And the next question, also answer a question that was not, I didn't really get a clear answer on. As it pertains to the local contractors, Mr. Connor explained that it's an international tender as usual, but we've seen where in the past an exact conversation like what we're having now, local versus international, was had. The exact answer of what is on paper was given, and in reality, something else plays out. So the question was posed: Is the project going to be cut up in different sections so local contractors can actually stand a chance to pass the tender? Or are we going to wait for it to go bad to then figure out afterwards we got to break it up like we've done in projects prior? So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, MP.
Yep. Regarding the question of the project run over and the cost, I think it's something that is definitely factored in our thinking about this project. Like all projects, there's always a contingency that is as much as possible built into a project, but it's also the idea of we recognize already with several other projects that were ongoing throughout the trust fund, among other things, that we may, if we come to that point, have to make a decision about what is most cost effective. So for example, I think in the presentation, there was discussion that if, for example, we come to a parcel of land where it's a big tract of land and there's one house versus the next road that has 20 homes, you'd have to make a consideration there. Second to that, we're also looking at the point of view of if we come to the decision point of additional financing, that's a discussion that will have to be had, of course, throughout the course of the project. And then the second question regarding the discussion about the breakdown, I'll hand
and I think that will always be an ongoing discussion with these projects, simply because of the nature of the projects. The time that we have to complete this project within the trust fund is 2028, which is the time that the project will also is scheduled to be completed and commissioned. So obviously, I would reiterate the fact that we are looking at a project to kick off in the third quarter of 2027. So the conversation should focus on our companies preparing themselves for this opportunity when it comes. Because just shutting the door and saying it's only going to be local means that the local companies would imagine that something is happening on their behalf. I think in an environment that we have for the opportunity that we have, and I see some local companies here represented as well. The fact that we are having this early consultation gives these local companies the opportunity to take advantage of that when it does occur.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. MP York.
Just one follow-up in the vein of management of expectations. A presentation is given tonight where it states 1,400 households, et cetera, of connections, et cetera. People that are watching, people are here, will get an expectation from that. For example, if I'm part of the cul-de-sac basin, I'm expecting something after this presentation. If the minister is already stating that things can change and will change, seeing that 2027 is the kickoff date, that's 5 years from the estimate. Why wait until the first hole is dug to then say, hey, we're not going to make it with the budget that we have today at that time? Why is that calculation not done prior to the project and not during the project?
Yeah, so I think you misunderstood me. I clearly stated that within the project is already contingency built in. We're having that discussion already. That's why we have several meetings over this topic. That's one. And secondly, like all projects, not necessarily about SWMP itself. As a government planned for certain things in 2017, there was a hurricane. The government planned, there was COVID. So we do incorporate and build contingency what's within the scope what's possible. No one can anticipate all obstacles and all barriers. But I think within the scope of what we can, which is basically financial contingency, the project is really working on that. But if, for example, we have a hurricane next year that demands all resources go towards that, it will have an impact on the project. It's clear and it's not something you can doubt. What we can do within our scope, which is basically building contingency and already have in the back of our mind that should something happen, we may have the possibility of getting additional financing. That's just good governance and responsible thinking. So no one stated that we're already anticipating a failure. We're already anticipating how we can address something should a failure happen.
Thank you, Minister Gums. I see MP York is still thinking on his follow-up question. However, I do want to invite Mr. Vadijo to please take some time to clarify his last slide of your presentation. This can probably add to the conversation that we're currently having.
No, yeah. In fact, the process was the way around. So years ago, the 25 million were allocated. At that time, there was no estimate of the household that are going to be connected. The exercise that was done recently was to estimate the household that can be connected today with the unit costs that are today in the market, with the market research that we conducted this year, so we can have an accurate projection by next year in terms of how many households they can be connected. So after conducting this market research, we ended up with this conclusion. The financing that we have cannot cover all the activities that are there, but we are using accurate and current figures and unit cost of the local market. So we are not basing our estimate on calculations that were done years ago. It was done recently. That's why there is no risk of now saying we're gonna connect 1,400 and then we end up with 9,000 like you were saying.
Thank you, Mr. Vadijo.
If I can just add to that, and I think this is why these public consultations are so critical, because delays cost money, construction costs money. So if we can get all of these different discussions and concerns out of the way quite early, it actually mitigates the risk of delays, which I think the MP pointed out rightly, inflation on construction 3 to 5% a year. So if you look at basically having a solid foundation in terms of public engagement, in terms of ironing out all the kinks very early, and this project, in all fairness, has been one of the easiest projects that I have seen in a very short time I've been minister. We are very much on track to make sure that we have a very tight and very effective timeline for the execution of this project. So I'm not very concerned with the runover. Of course, like I said, contingency is built in on every construction project, but the teams, both at BROMI and NRPB, the expertise is there with the guidance and support, of course, with the consultants in the World Bank. We are really very on track with this project.
Thank you, Minister Gums. We do have a few more questions. I see Mr. Bonkamper is at the mic.
Thank you.
You're most welcome, sir.
I like how with the goals, and I'm happy this slide popped up before I pose this question, because my question is now to those that are preparing the design, has any consideration been given not to put sewage lines in the hill, but keep septic trucks working for government that will go up there, pull that sewage, create a sewage fee, be it an economical fee or whatever you want to call it, a vervuilings fee, and that way save significant money with anything above 75 meters or 80 meters in the sky. Has any, because I see they came with all those green areas, we're going to do that, that's 200 meters high. Do we understand all the pitfalls we're going to have to go through to slow down that water? We have a good example when it comes off the hill at Mount William. So I don't see that in this design. Maybe it was done, but not spoken about. But if it wasn't done, please consider it. It's going to save you a lot of millions.
So I think just to clarify, and indeed very much in line with what you said about the design, there is a tentative sort of height to which this project will achieve. And I think also considering the fact of with the implementation of a main sewer line, it's also good to consider the fact that this will significantly sort of remove business from the persons who have sewage pumping companies. So those are things that are also being considered. One, from the point of view of, like you rightfully said, the high cost of going higher into the hill. So we do have a rough estimate of where we're planning to take this, this project. I believe, I'm not sure if it's fully confirmed yet, at 50 to 75 meters actually, in terms of height, but that's something that we have to verify. But in any case, Mr. Boncampo, those discussions are indeed ongoing, that we know realistically the challenges of going into the hills, particularly hills on Sint Maarten that are very steep with narrow roads, and the cost of those projects. So those things that we also are discussing because of the cost, but also because of the impact it will have on the persons who own these sewage pumping trucks companies. So those considerations are also given to the people who run these companies, who are, for the most part, mom and pop shops.
Thank you, Minister Gums. I do want to add one additional comment, especially where this work for smaller contractors are concerned. They do intend to split the works for the private connections activity. So definitely smaller contractors will have that opportunity. I do also want to ask some other questions that came through. I think I saw this in the slide, but I'm going to mention it nonetheless. What are the future plans for other neighborhoods? Is the vision that eventually all households on the island will be connected to this sewer line? What are the future plans for other neighborhoods?
Yeah, thanks very much. And I think it's just on that point, I think it's very important that you clarified the previous point, particularly because in the sort of recent move with all World Bank projects, there is a greater move towards local participation. But it's very important to realize that there's an ongoing global 70-30% split. A lot of work is available, like you rightfully said, but I think you have to look at the bigger picture in terms of this as a holistic project. Now, to your point regarding future neighborhoods, I think the first thing is to recognize that we've done sewage projects, for example, in Dashwater. We haven't connected those households. So simultaneous to this project happening as well will be the Dashwater will finally be connected, and that's being done by UNOPS. We signed that agreement just this week. And then the long-term plan is, of course, looking at how do you expand this to other areas. So the next big district in Sint Maarten, you're looking at Cold Bay. The discussion is also going on, and it was asked today, you know, how government over the last couple of years has moved towards centralization of your wastewater treatment. Are you intending to also send sewage over the hill from Cold Bay to the wastewater treatment plant? These are discussions we're having. Why? Because they have benefits for both. And I think there's been a very active discussion for a number of years about the value of centralization of wastewater treatment plants versus decentralization. But I think the fact that we have such an underutilized capacity at 80 Elliott Road, as much as possible, we should use that centralized spot until we look at expanding even further into the west of the island.
Thank you very much, Minister. I did not recognize the time. I just realized it's 8:44. Our time, we are coming to an end, but I'll be taking 2 more questions prior to us shutting down the Q&A segment. I do have some online questions, but definitely if you would like to ask, the mic is still available. I just hear screening to see if Boncampa is ready to get back up. Let me ask one from our online viewers, and then, of course, you can go ahead, Mr. Boncamper. All right. So is there any dollar value that can be generated from the waste collected? For instance, reselling the byproducts of waste to regional and international markets? Are there any dollar value that can be generated from waste collected? For instance, reselling the byproducts of waste to regional and international markets?
Yeah, very good question. I think this is a question that really is a common thread throughout a number of the trust fund projects with ROMI, is the creation of a circular economy. So one of the things we were just speaking about is you have these, oh, perfect, I can't see. These are the sludge pies. I call them sludge pies, but anyway, these sludge pies that are basically, that are the sort of the product that comes out after you add the thickener, and then those are the ones that are currently applied.
And take the benefit of it from there, because I think that the market for Samar, when you talk about international or regional markets, I don't think we will have sufficient to satisfy any market. But I think the fact that we're talking about recycling it into byproducts that we would first use is the way to go.
Thank you, Mr. Claret, for that clarification. One last question, and then I go on to Boncamper. Give me 1 minute, Mr. Boncamper. You're going to close the Q&A this evening. Sounds like a plan? All right. So the last one, I'm touching on it because it's actually youth involvement, and I thought that was a nice thing to bring, especially for the consultation. The gentleman says, since we're talking about wastewater, one of my environmental education initiatives in 2026 is for multiple secondary schools to come up with a wastewater control plan for the Dutch Quarter residential area. I think having our youth involved is important. He asks, what's your opinion?
I think that's a no-brainer. One of the things that we have with our other waste project, and it's going to transfer very nicely into this, is the idea of Think Green. And Think Green is really about how do you, along with the intervention you're doing, actually make people buy into what you want to do. And the key to change comes from the youth. People are very much set in their ways as adults. If you really want to bring about change, you have to bring on board the youth. So for me in the ministry, it's very key that youth play a very pivotal role in bringing about that change. A very large part of what we're doing is how we can engage with youth, particularly because a large amount of work with youth is currently being done already at the private sector level and the citizen level. A large part of what we're trying to do is how do we actually support that scaling up to the national level, that a lot of the awareness building, youth engagement with ideas on how we can address a number of those things are taken on by the government. Because I think the challenge you have is oftentimes we go away, we go on fact-finding missions, we sit down and we think and think and think, whereas the youth and the local youth have a lot of the answers already. So we've been engaging quite a lot, and I think for me it's a no-brainer to actually have the youth really help us to pilot and drive home all these changes. Yeah, actually, exactly. We actually, thank you for reminding me, we actually were much part of supporting a group of 10 youth go to Germany recently. Particularly on solid waste best practices, because these are the future champions who will keep, prying and nagging their parents to do the right thing or a different way of thinking. So for us, it's really about not just saying it, but also living what you're talking about, because these are really the ambassadors and the change agents that we need for these major reforms.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Bonkamper, I'm going to ask you to have your questions concise, as you're the last one for this evening. Thank you so very much in advance.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I heard during the presentation the statement about we want to protect our beaches. Food for thought. We have a lot of hotels in Sint Maarten. Not one is connected to sewage. They have their own plants. Nobody checks what they throw into the sea. You have in the town area a few of them, but majority of them are over the hill. So while I understand the ministry's desire or the minister's desire to centralize on 88 Road, I think we bought a bunch of land behind GB to put a plant there. That is the plant that should take the whole of the West Coast and part of Marigot. That is the Dutch-French project. What is the status of that one? Because that will alleviate all of the water that is produced by the hotels being treated there.
Yeah, very good. And I think too, and I actually really like that question. Why? Because in my previous life as Foreign Affairs, this is actually one of the key projects we tried to bring. The fact that Marigot and bringing the water to Coal Bay and actually managing the wastewater treatment in that area compared to what's currently happening now, which is independent services. And unfortunately, it didn't transpire for several reasons, which don't have to be discussed necessarily here. But I think ideally, like I said, this discussion about what do you do versus centralization versus as you go further west, you have a separate solution for there. So we are very much in the discussion phase about what do you do with the long-term expansion as well. I think that was all of your question. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you, Minister. With that, we are concluding this evening's panel discussion. But prior to this closing this evening, let me give each of our panelists, or tell each of our panelists, thank you for igniting this meaningful dialogue. We are grateful and appreciate you for your contributions. Thank you highly. Prior to closing this evening's program, I invite the Minister of Vrami, Patrice Gums, to give his closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I also want to give a special round of applause before we go to our MC. Thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, to our distinguished panelists, our experts, thank you so much for all the hard work you've done, NRPB as well. So I think tonight covered a lot of things. And I think for me, the key message has been, and we've seen it, the value of this project goes beyond sewage. It's really about looking at this project, not about just the physical intervention, but but really and truly what it means in terms of community building, protecting environments, boosting our tourism economy, most importantly, creating communities that benefit the residents and the people of Sint Maarten. We spoke very briefly about the impacts and the strengthening of VROMI. I think it's really vital as minister to ensure that there's capacity building within the ministry. I think one critical thing as well is that the ministry has been blessed really with the expertise of the very limited capacity we have, particularly in this field. So I want to actually really give a shout out to my civil servants in the New Works Department for all the hard work you've done thus far. I will admit this project has not needed a lot of ministerial intervention support because you guys have really owned this project, and I'm really grateful for that, really and truly. Secondly, as well, to the NRPB, in particular, there are some persons who have had expertise also coming out as consultants, but also from the Ministry of VROMI historically. Your expertise and support are really, really appreciated in this as well. So really and truly, thank you. The future of this project really is about proper regulation and governance. And I think one key takeaway is recognizing that in order to achieve the things we really want, change is really important. Going back to the term that, wastewater is not sexy, neither is paying more for services. But the reality is if we really want to live in the kind of country where we can be proud to say, there isn't sewage, there's quality of life, there's not, footballs running into sewage water, there's not children coming off school buses anymore, stepping into sewage water, there's not pedestrians walking in cul-de-sac anymore, running into water, splashing on them. The regulation, the governance, the framework, and the ability to actually finance that is really important. So that's the key takeaway to the public, that recognize that for us to achieve this, there needs to be an increase in the review of ownership of wastewater through a proper authority, but also through your individual contributions to get very much a success. Just two more key takeaways to this. I want to say what I really appreciate from the from the project team in particular is the attention that's going to be placed in this project to mitigating impacts. The cul-de-sac district has historically, over the last couple of years, been a large discussion regarding congestion, overpopulation and development. MP York and I often go back and forth regarding drainage. So it's one of those key things that, the district is very congested and in need of a lot of attention. And I think whatever the ministry, myself, and in particular the Minister of Justice, in terms of traffic regulation can do, it will be a key part of ensuring that not only traffic, but also proper management of the project through limitations on how the project is executed with certain hours. I think the grievance portal at NRPB is very important. Why? Because we want to recognize and address that you really want to have that community engagement and make people feel as if the project is not a nuisance, but really an added value to their quality of life and to the value of their property as well. And then finally, I think one of the key things, if I can read my own handwriting, yes, looking at this from the point of circularity, I think it was a nice way to end off regarding what can we do beyond this project with what's happening. What's currently happening is, of course, we have these sludge pies, then up in the landfill, and the SG, he's very passionate about composting, and he indicated to me basically, we can take this sludge pie and really look at it from the point of view of adding value. Waste has value. This project aims to manage that waste and in the long term actually derive value out of it for more long-term plans. So this project really for me is one of the key about, as Claret from NRPB indicated, really rebuilding a more resilient Sint Maarten. It's a very overused word, but I think it's one of those key words to describe what's currently happening here in terms of creating sustainable communities, ensuring adequate health, but also ensuring that people are proud to live where they live, but also ensure that in future, things like property values don't decrease because of certain areas. Things like airborne vectors and diseases aren't going to happen because you have an outbreak of waterborne diseases. So these are the key things that this project really outlines. And I'm really, really proud that this project not only started and is going very well, but that it does have a very, very good trend and success rate thus far. And I look forward to the implementation of it at 2028. Of course, with the recommendation that everybody remembers to respond to the questions on the QR code, be engaged. I think for me, this project doesn't need to be something that we just kind of come in and do and it close the road back and it's like, oh, okay, there's sewage. It's really about engaging. What is that you want to see in your community? I think the beautification element, as mentioned by Alvaro, is really important because, again, it needs to be more than just sewage. It's about basically creating green spaces and community spaces as well, which is a key part of this project and what it will deliver. So I think for me, this project represents more than just a sewage intervention. It's healthcare, it's tourism support, it's quality life support, and of course, it's building communities. So with that, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Remain engaged, and we are around for a couple more minutes if there's more questions. So once again, thank you to everyone who was a part of tonight, and we look forward to joining on this journey together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for your key messages. I feel like I don't have much to say after that. So to every individual present, whether in the room or online, thank you once again for your time, your thoughtful questions, and active engagement. Kindly, on your way out, there's additional snack boxes. There's some more drinks. Please take one. On behalf of the Government of Sint Maarten, the Ministry of ROMI, and the NRPB, we thank you. Have a safe evening. And once again, I'm your host, Amanda Vital, Bed Minister.